If people see unethical behaviour at the top, the real message is clear. The values aren't worth the paper they're printed on. Culture is not free coffee. It's not flexible working arrangements or a Nintendo Switch in the boss's office. It's not a poster on the wall with a list of values that only get talked about at the start of a new year or when something goes wrong. If you've ever wondered why culture feels so hard to define or why changing it seems impossible, this episode is for you. G'day everyone and welcome to another episode of Lead on Purpose. My name's James Middleton and over the last 20 years I've led teams of all shapes and sizes, from the Australian Air Force through the private sector. These days I work with organisations to build ethical, purposeful leadership at every level. I also help you become the leader that you want to be. I explore real-world leadership challenges, bring you inspiring stories from experienced leaders, and give you practical strategies to help you lead with confidence, clarity, and purpose. Today, for the first episode of 2026, I'm talking about organisational culture. What is it and how to transform it? Throughout my career, whether in the Air Force or in the corporate world for small and large business, the start of a new year usually meant annual refresher presentations and training. In the Air Force, that looked like getting back into the seat and trying to remember what all the buttons in the aircraft did. It looked like completing online refresher training about safety, security, and appropriate behaviour around the squadron. In the private sector, it usually looked like HR policy refreshers, maybe some online training, and a presentation from senior leaders about all the great things we're going to do this year, with a reminder of the corporate values. All of these things aim to reaffirm the culture of an organisation, but culture goes far beyond policy, procedure, and mandatory training. In this episode, I'm going to help you understand what organisational culture really is, and the role leadership plays in shaping it, for better or for worse. I'll unpack what organisational culture really is, including some common misconceptions. I'll explain 3 ways that poor leadership can damage culture, and I'll give you 5 leadership behaviours to help you reshape and transform your organisation's culture starting today. So what is organisational culture? Well, let's start with the basics. Organisational culture is the shared values, beliefs, and norms for how people think, feel, and behave at work. Think of it as the social glue that holds an organisation together. It helps people feel connected to each other and to the organisation as a whole, and it should energise productivity and encourage accountability. Culture is not free coffee. It's not flexible working arrangements or a Nintendo Switch in the boss's office. It's not a poster on the wall with a list of values that only get talked about at the start of a new year or when something goes wrong. Culture is how people interact, how they collaborate and manage conflict. It influences people's motivation to come to work and their engagement while they're there. Culture is how work gets done, and it's how people grow and develop. Everyone has a responsibility to the culture of an organisation, not just the CEO or leadership team. Every person, no matter their level, no matter their role, influences culture through their behaviour. But here's a truth that often gets overlooked. Culture is a reflection of leadership, and the saying that actions speak louder than words is never more true than in leadership. People respond to what leaders do far more than what they say. If leaders cut corners, others will too. If leaders value collaboration, others will follow that example. What people see leaders doing will influence what they think is acceptable. And here's why this matters. How we think determines how we act. Our actions become our behaviours. And it's those behaviours that are the observable outcomes of culture. So if you want cultural change, you can't start with behaviour alone. You need to start by challenging people to think differently. Leadership has the biggest influence on culture. Unfortunately, that influence isn't always positive. Here are 3 ways that poor leadership can damage culture. Number 1, ethical breaches. When leaders compromise integrity, trust goes out the window. It doesn't matter how strong or well-worded your value statement is. If people see unethical behaviour at the top, the real message is clear. The values aren't worth the paper they're printed on. Number 2, hypocrisy. Saying one thing and doing another is cultural poison. If you talk about collaboration but reward individual competition, or preach well-being while glorifying a hustle culture and burnout, Your people will hear you loud and clear. And number 3, mandating cultural change. You can't force culture to change through rules or slogans. Cultural change is not a memo or a press release. It's a movement, and movements start with influence, not control. When leaders try to mandate cultural change, particularly without changing their own hypocritical or unethical behavior, people will resist. They'll disengage, and eventually, they'll just leave. So, how do you start changing culture? It's hard. There is no quick fix or shortcut. It takes time, it takes commitment, and it takes sacrifice. In large organizations, sustainable cultural transformation can be a years-long and complex process. The bigger the ship, the longer it takes to turn. It often requires structural changes, policy updates. It definitely requires significant financial investment and even personnel changes. These shifts can take years, especially when individuals have been successful under outdated cultural practices. Changing deeply ingrained habits and systems is never easy. But here's the truth. That lasting change doesn't start with a new policy or a press release. It starts with a change in thinking and a change in behavior. It grows from person to person, snowballing and gaining momentum. One person's shift in mindset influences their team. The team influences a business unit. The business unit influences a division, and eventually the entire organization begins to move. A change in thinking and behavior at the top of an organization is a necessary catalyst for transformation. Without it, any structural or policy changes will feel hollow and hypocritical. People will see it as rules for thee and not for me. If leaders don't walk the walk, culture will not change. Organizational cultural change is a tough mountain to climb. There's no doubt about it. But don't let the mountain in front of you stop you from taking the first step. To help you take that step, and hopefully the many thousands after it, here are 5 leadership behaviors that you can put into practice today to help you start transforming your organization's culture. Number 1, model the behavior that you want to see. If you want a culture of respect, show respect to others. If you want a culture of learning, growth, and innovation, show people that it's okay to try and fail. If you want a culture where people hold themselves and each other accountable, start by taking a look in the mirror and taking responsibility for your own actions and the influence they're having on the people and the culture around you. Number 2, tell stories that reinforce values. Culture is built on stories because stories create connection. Share real examples of people living the values and the impact that has on the organization. Don't be afraid to share examples of your own challenges in living the values and how you work through them, because the reality is change isn't always easy. Celebrate the moments that reflect the culture that you want to build. Number 3, challenge people to think differently. Instead of asking, why are you doing that? Ask, how does this help us achieve our goals? Instead of saying, we've always done it that way because it works, ask, what can we do differently to make things better? Invite feedback, even if that makes you feel vulnerable. Encourage innovation and new ways of doing things, even if that means that your way is no longer the way. Behavioral changes start with a change in thinking, so lead with curiosity, not criticism. Number 4, create space for honest conversations. Culture thrives in connection. Make it safe to speak up, especially for those people who want to question or challenge the status quo. Listen with empathy, ask questions to understand, and respond with integrity. Number 5, reward what you want to see more of. What gets rewarded gets repeated. As much of a cliche as that is, it's true. Our brains are wired to repeat behaviors that give us a positive outcome. So, praise and celebrate values-driven behavior and do it publicly. Reward positive cultural contribution, but don't avoid calling out and correcting poor behavior. Accountability goes both ways. Culture is a reflection of leadership. It's the social glue that holds an organization together. It encourages connection and fuels productivity. Although cultural change starts with leadership, it doesn't end there. Everyone has a role to play. And don't forget that as a leader, you can't successfully mandate cultural change. You have to influence it. And that influence starts with how you think, act, and behave every day. So remember these 5 leadership behaviors. Model the behavior that you want to see. Tell stories that reinforce values. Challenge people to think differently. Create space for honest conversations and reward what you want to see more of. Cultural change takes time, it takes investment, and it definitely takes sacrifice. But don't let the mountain ahead of you stop you from taking the first step. So here's my challenge to you. Reflect on your own leadership and the influence it's having on the people and culture around you. Are you part of the problem? Thanks for joining me on this episode of Lead on Purpose. If today's episode gave you something to reflect on or a light bulb moment, then let me know about it down in the comments. Please like, subscribe, and share this episode with someone who's ready to become a better leader. Remember, leadership isn't a title, it's a choice. So make that choice and keep leading on purpose. I'm James, and I'll see you next time.